Welcome to Quality Matters, where we speak with experts across industries to see how their perspectives can inform our pursuit of high quality education for all students. I'm Shaka, and this is Caitlin, and we're happy to be your guides for this limited series.
Like you, Shaka and I are passionate about all students having access to a great education, and quality is a driving force behind our work. But what does quality really mean? In an era where parents can customize their child's education, this question is more important than ever.
During each session, we'll hear from leaders in education, technology, business, sports, and the arts. We hope to apply their insights to our pursuit of a great education in the K-12 space.
Join us on this journey to secure a great education for all children. This is Quality Matters.
Well, we are recording from Nashville today, and we're really excited to have with us Max Goldberg. Max is a hospitality entrepreneur. He's co-owner of Strategic Hospitality. He's a good friend. He's a man who looks great in pants or jeans as well. But really, to be serious, Max and his brother Ben at Strategic Hospitality have really done more for the hospitality and cuisine industry in Nashville, I think, than possibly anyone else over the past, sort of 10 or 15 years. So really excited to have Max with us today for this conversation. Thanks, man.
Well, thank you. Super humbled by those comments. And I think we've been fortunate to play a very small part in the hospitality scene in Nashville, but so much of our success is the city that we're here in Nashville, and just all credit goes to that, but just humbled and lucky to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks so much. One of the things that I think might surprise a lot of people is that Nashville has kind of become known for its food scene. We were talking to folks even this morning who said like, oh yeah, have you tried this restaurant and those places? And people are coming in from out of town, even out of the country for the food scene in Nashville. But one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you is because you guys have a number of different concepts, food concepts. You've got everything from the catbird seat, which is sort of really high end, to, food at minor league baseball games, right? And sort of really runs the gamut. You got a new concept called Friends in Low Places, and so all over the place. But what we wanted to talk about is how you think about and pursue quality amidst this sort of range of different options. So we're really excited to get to do it. Yeah,
I appreciate that. I mean, I think for us, I've been doing what I've been doing for about 18 years now, which is crazy to say out loud. I think the first 10 years were really spent trying to bring things that we saw in other markets to Nashville. I think Picasso said, good art is borrowed, great art is stolen. And so what we saw in other markets, we would try to bring back to our hometown and create some fun spaces. And I wish I could say there was like some clear path and business plan we had. It was really just selfish endeavors of places we'd want to go and things we'd want to create. And we'd always ask ourselves as kind of a North Star, would we be the first people to line up here to go and attend? And it kind of worked. And it was super cool. And then during that process, one of the greatest gifts of my career is I got to meet these incredibly talented, wonderful human beings that weren't just great at what they did, but like at their core, we shared kind of the same moral compass. And we got to partner with them and help them execute their vision. And so instead of just having employees that we'd work with, we had real careers and equity partners where they were owners in the business and we could help execute their vision. And as a result, we've just been able to see the greatest things happen with some of these chefs, and complete testament to them. I proudly say I'm the least valuable person in my company, but seeing the success of these folks with, consistent best restaurant in North America or best new restaurant or these James Beard finalists or just the ability to do more, I don't take for granted 1 second, but it's just so much of my success has been the people I've surrounded myself with.
I love that. So we talk a lot about quality, of course. Quality matters, and we're excited to dive into sort of what quality looks like for you. But to kick us off, I'm curious, quality is subjective, but in your mind, what makes a really good restaurant or a really great environment where a restaurant would thrive?
Yeah. My quick and easy answer is the person sitting across from you
Love it.
is
That's wonderful.
the number one thing. I think the next thing is you have a lot of great restaurants, but I think there's a difference between service and hospitality. And I've been really fortunate to eat at some of the best restaurants in the world, and I felt like a number in the system. And then you go to some of the places that are maybe these like great local legends, and you go in, you're like, man, I had the greatest moment of my life or this great memory. And so much of what we get to do is creating these environments where great things and great moments can happen. And the fact that I get to be part of that in some weird way, where you're coming in to celebrate a big win for yourself, or the loss of a family member, or a divorce, or a marriage, or an engagement, whatever it is that we get to be part of, that is the coolest thing in the world for me. And I really look at food and drink as a vehicle for conversation. And
Love
if
that.
you kind of like look in your core, you think about the quality piece of it, your last great meal, there's probably a good chance you didn't remember what you ate, but you remember how you felt. And so one of the things that I try to coach and teach, whether it's in our concessions business, our projects at the airport, our chefs tasting restaurants, is no matter what, when people come in, we want them to perceive value, feel the warmth, feel welcome. And I kind of take a little riff on the Maya Angelou quote that people may not remember what you said or what you did, but always how you made them feel.
Hmm.
And so the core for us is, what's the most important thing in hospitality is how you feel in the space. I mean, I think that you can go in and have technically perfect service, and it can be a really incredible experience in that regard, but it's probably going to be pretty forgettable if you don't have fun and you don't have the right person sitting across from you.
Man, that is a marvelous way to think about hospitality and to think about you're forcing me anyway to sort of stretch how I think about the restaurant industry, right? Because my sense is that most people probably think about restaurants and they think, oh, food, what's on the
Yeah.
menu, and that's kind of it. What's on the menu? Is it priced in a way that makes sense to me?
Hmm.
But I'm actually thinking about, Max, the maybe the first or second night that that we knew one another, and we had a great time, of all places, at a Waffle House, right?
Yeah.
Why? Because the company really made for the moment. I could actually tell you what I ate, because I eat the same thing at Waffle House every time. I know how I get my hash browns there, but it really was about the environment.
Sure.
Now, for other health reasons, I don't do that all the time at 2 a.m. at Waffle House, but I love this hospitality element. Is that something then that you're constantly hiring for? What are the things you look for on the front end? Because the people obviously then must matter a whole lot in your equation.
Yeah, we've been really lucky to grow from within a lot. I mean, a lot of the core leadership team have been with us for 10 plus years. I mean, I
Mm.
think if you look at the average person I get to work with, and nobody works for me, everyone works with me, and now we have real equity partners that I work directly with. They're just good human beings that I want to have a beer with. And I
Mm.
think so much of what we do can be taught, but if in your core you're not someone that we're going to have fun with, you're not going to share that kind of radical candor and sense of enthusiasm, and just an insatiable curiosity. Like, if anyone ever thought like, oh yeah, we nailed it, they're probably not the right person for us. We
Hmm.
constantly want to be pushing and asking ourselves, like, what can we do that's a little bit different, a little bit more fun? And at their core, like, are they a good human being you want to spend time with? Because I really do believe you're the sum of who you spend your time with. And I work a lot, and I get to spend time with these incredible people. We want to make sure they're great. And so part of our hiring practices is instilling that in our directors of ops, our GMs, our leadership teams. Um, and that translates down to every single hire we make. And so I know that if I go in, and whether it's a GM, a dishwasher, a bartender, a barback, whatever it is in our industry, they're probably a pretty good person. And if they're not, I think they're found out pretty quickly, and we promote them to customer.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
This is why I think these conversations are so interesting, because so much of what you're saying is transferable to the education space. This idea of, um, you know, the the type of people you're learning from, and making sure that the way you feel in that environment is conducive to then a successful outcome. All of that stuff is so school leaders, school districts could learn so much from the approach that you're describing. And I hope that people listening make those connections themselves, and are able to figure out how they can take some of your words and implement them in their days. Um, but I'm curious, because a huge part of schooling and a huge part of education is metrics
Hmm.
and measuring success, measuring quality, which of course hopefully contributes to the success. And I have to imagine that's also a part of your world and what it looks like to measure success. But of course, the successes you just talked about, they're um, they're kind of almost intangible, because it's the feeling of who you were
Hmm.
sitting with, or it's the feeling of what you felt when you were celebrating a big win or when you were grieving a loss. How do you guys measure those feelings and those intangibles that allow you to do so accurately and then also to replicate them in other environments and in other situations.
Yeah, I think for us, we always try to be a for-profit company. We're not always successful. We try to be a
Yeah, yeah,
for-profit.
yeah.
And
Mm,
so if you get to the kind of core of it, we're really data-driven in terms of real-time feedback on customer reviews, and there's technology practices that have helped us with that, reservation systems, et cetera. We set everything on metrics of cost of goods sold, and we have certain metrics that we want to make sure we hit from a percentage standpoint to ensure that we have profitability, to make sure that payroll and salaries and everything are taken care of. But we always kind of save that 5% of like, let's just see what happens and have some fun. And like, it doesn't have to make sense. And I think that 5% is sometimes where the magic occurs.
mm,
But in our industry, and I think it's probably similar to teaching because it's just so close to it in education in general, is that a lot of our restaurants, like we get instant feedback.
yeah.
Like one of the reasons that we love the chef's tasting experience or kind of the bartender, curated kind of drink experience is because you get feedback right away.
Hmm.
Like, you're
Good
going
or
to
bad.
good or bad.
Yeah,
And we definitely get both. And I think
yeah.
it's how we recover from the bad that really defines our success because it's easy to celebrate when things are great, but it's how do you react when things are bad and how do you correct and make it better. So we certainly have the actual data that is just a black and white math. And, I think that's pretty easy for us. But the special sauce of it and kind of the fun is what gets me excited.
Mhm.
And we have implemented a Dreamweaver position, which we stole from Will Guidara from 11 Madison Park. And
Hmm.
now he's written Unreasonable Hospitality and is one of the more respected people in our industry. But all this person's job is to try to make really fun reservations, really fun moments, and curate these experiences for people. And to live in that whimsical is just so fun for us. So when you say, how do you kind of define success? I think if we're a meaningful part of people's experiences and memories, and if people are like, "Oh, I'm going out tonight. Where should we go?" and they come in and have the trust of like, "Hey, we know we're gonna." It may not be the best French fry I've ever had, although we hope it is.
Mm,
But if it's not, like at least I felt warmth, and we created
Hmm.
these fun moments, and we felt taken care of and seen, and we're
mm,
part of this community. Um, so I think we're figuring that out every day. But for me, success is just, are we really making people happy? Do we have the reputation of being kind? And are we taking care of the employees first? Because
Hmm.
there's no way that the employees are going to take care of the guests if they're not taken care of.
mm,
And then constantly changing, constantly
Yeah,
evolving.
yeah. It sounds like for you guys, yes, of course, the bottom line is important, but that would be the tail wagging the dog if you sort of led with like, okay, what's the loss leader at one of our sites, right? The more important thing it sounds like is, well, what's that telling us about the experience,
Sure.
right?
mm,
Like, why is that particular product or that particular experience not doing as well, right? Like, what's it
Yeah.
telling us there?
And if we ever, some of our chef's tasting restaurants, we prep basically to the person. So we can be super effective
mm,
with our cost of goods sold. That doesn't diminish the quality of product. The quality of product is astronomically wonderful. But we prep to be so precise that we can make sure that
Mm,
without punishing the customer, we hit these percentages. And I think that if we started to skew too low on our percentage, which would be a financial win for the restaurant, it's ultimately a hurt for the guest. And so we would never do that. And then also the other way where we need to make sure that balance takes place. But
mhm,
we'll never compromise the integrity of what we do for a quick buck. We're in it for the long haul. We react. We try to make sure that if things sway and if there are, avocados are very tumultuous up and down kind of cost for us, we're
right.
not going to pass that on to the customer necessarily because avocado pricing is up 20% for a month. If we have a convention coming to town, we're not going to raise the price of our burger at our honky tonk on Lower Broadway by $2 because we know that they can just take it. We want to take care of the locals first and the tourists will come after.
It's so interesting. And thank you as a local. I
Yes.
appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll always strive to be like Waffle House, but we're working on it, man.
Well, that's all right.
And by the way, I love Waffle House.
Yeah,
Let me
we
be
love it.
clear. Yeah.
We love it. Yeah.
Do you? I think it's so interesting to hear you talk about the hospitality industry and your approach to service and the the focus that you have on the personalized experiences. It's very clear that you've had multiple decades in this industry, and the way you talk about it is um, it's so relatable as a consumer of your products. It makes me feel excited to try more of them. Was there something that happened or an experience that you had leading up to your entree into this world that made you think like, yes, this is what I want to be doing? I'm curious where that drive or passion sort of originated because it's super genuine, is how I feel. Like listening to you talk, I can I sense that. So I'm curious where it started.
Mm.
I think hospitality has always kind of been in my blood.
Hmm.
I got involved in student government starting in seventh grade, and that carried all the way through college. And had a party promotions business in college, and even when I lived in New York and had like a real corporate job, if you will, I still hosted a party one night a week. I think the core is I just love taking care of people, and I
Hmm.
love seeing people have fun. Um, but when I moved back to Nashville in 2007, I couldn't afford a car. I walked to work every day, and I lived in the cheapest place in Nashville, which was downtown Nashville, which is hilarious now. And I took
Right.
every penny I had made in New York and bought half of one restaurant for my brother so we could be 50-50 partners. And I just went into it with this, hey, I want to create jobs in the city I grew up in. I want to learn every aspect of this position. And so for the first 2 years of my career, I don't remember being this bad, but my girlfriend at the time, 10-year
Hmm.
break, now wife. It's a crazy story. That could be a different
Amazing.
podcast. My favorite person on the planet. She was with me at the very beginning and actually took the picture of my brother and I signing our contract together, which she said I'd leave at 9 a.m. and come home at 4 a.m. I don't think it was that bad, but
Wow.
I will never correct my wife. And it was something that I just learned every aspect of the industry. And I never thought we would grow the way we have. I mean, it was really just, okay, well, this worked. Let's maybe try this and let's stick to that kind of core focus of, is this something that we're having fun with? Don't let the financial side of it just be the dictator. Like, is this
Hmm.
adding value to the area we're in? Are we being good stewards of the community? And it just kind of blossomed. And I couldn't tell you financially what I did last year, but I could tell you how many jobs we created.
Hmm.
And to me, that's my favorite thing to kind of keep pushing on, is creating jobs in a city we grew up in and giving back to a community that's been so good to us.
One of the things that's really interesting to me about kind of your journey and that origin story is that, as far as I can tell, you didn't come to it um, from like culinary school. And so, how do you think about that? You now, here you are, and over the years, I don't know how many restaurants Strategic Hospitality has opened, but um, too many to count, and they're wildly different. The quality is really high, but you're not the sort of like the culinary sort of brains behind the curtain, right? So how do you think about what Strategic Hospitality does, what your company does, and providing an actual food and service, but a food that tastes great? Like, what's the relationship like with say a chef?
Yeah. I mean, to reference back to my earlier comment, I love being the least valuable person in my company. And I'm very intentional to recognize my blind spots. And I am not a chef. I'm not a great bartender. I could go in and work the line. I can run expo. I've learned how to do things, but the people I work with will forget more about food and drink than I'll ever know.
Hmm.
And I've been so fortunate to find great people with incredible integrity, a great work ethic, and a shared vision of like, let's just do cool shit together and something meaningful for the city, and do everything I can to support them, um, and then kind of get out of the way and really
Hmm.
empower them to be successful
Hmm.
and try to help with all the things that maybe are their blind spots. And do they want to oversee a construction budget? Do they want to deal with insurance? Do they want to make sure that every single piece of our health inspection is done the right way? Do they want to make sure that we have the project management tools in place? Do they want to deal with the different programming that we have to do? They want to deal with the point of sale,
Yeah,
credit
and
card process,
inevitably the answer is no, right? I don't
right,
want to
Yeah,
do
right.
those things.
all
Yeah,
the things
that sounds
that
like a
are
lot.
not like the fun side of what we do,
Yeah.
and then free them up to say, hey, if you want to learn any of this, absolutely. And most of them do, but take that away so all they can focus on is what is not their blind set, which is what actually goes onto the plate and hits the table, and the feeling
Hmm.
you have in the restaurant and the experience you have, and just allow them to be creative.
Hmm.
And so, how do I balance it? I stay out of their way.
Hmm.
I don't think I've ever given feedback to a single chef of like, hey, this steak could use more salt. If they
Hmm.
ask my opinion, I'll give it to them, but they don't really ask my opinion that much, which is okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's super. That's super.
Yeah, I am so excited for this conversation to be heard by people in the education space, because of course we talk about this idea of quality and what it looks like to create a quality education for students. And there are plenty of people who need to recognize that in order to do that, they might have to get out of the way, and they might have to focus on what their strong suits are, so that other people can focus on what their strong suits are.
Hmm.
And ultimately, I think what's going to make what seems to have made you guys successful, what we see in making some unique education environment successful, is when everybody is doing what they are prepared to do, what they're equipped to do, what their experience
What they're passionate about.
has led them
even.
to, and what they're passionate about. Exactly, because that's tends to be where most of this quality derives from, is when someone does have that care
Mhm.
and that compassion. We've seen that in our conversations, and it seems like that would be consistent with what you're describing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worked for us. And if I ever sit around a table and we're discussing something new, and I think that I'm the smartest person in the room, or I have the most to offer, which, by the way, never happens, I know I'm in the wrong room. And I think that making sure that there are tools in place and safety nets to protect certain things, but then, to your point, getting out of the way and recognizing my blind spot and just supporting and empowering others. If people don't have the passion, they don't want to jump out of bed in the morning excited to do what they do, whether it's in education or construction or hospitality or whatever it is, it's probably not going to work. Like,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
have to have
Yeah.
that passion. There has to be things that really get you excited, and the compensation, not just from a financial perspective, but like the meaningfulness of purpose and being excited. That's so important.
Mhm.
And I think there's been countless studies done that people would rather earn less but feel like they're experts at what they do and be seen and feel valued and be
Yeah.
heard. And there's so much satisfaction that comes from that. And that's really where I think people find their happiness, is being
Mhm.
great at what they do, continuing to evolve, and just seeing their own success be recognized by the people they're working with, but not necessarily coming in and be like, well, you've done it this way for 2 years successfully, and I think I have a better idea, but they have no idea what they're talking about. That would infuriate people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
boy, that's going to give us, I think, a lot of fodder for the next segment, kind of when Caitlin and I break down this interview, and so I hope listeners will stick around with us for that, because this idea that folks want to be valued at work, they want their expertise and their passion to overlap,
Mhm.
right? There's a lot of overlap, I think, between the hospitality industry, as you describe it, and the K-12 education space as we see it. I want to close by kind of putting you on the spot a little bit, Max.
Yeah.
And this might be like asking a parent to rank their children, but you only have one
I
child.
could definitely do that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you, which one of your restaurants are you most excited about right now, this day?
Well, today's opening day of the Bandbox, so I mean, I think that in terms of just being excited for our 10th season, that's really exciting.
And this is the restaurant that's at the minor league baseball
It is. So
stadium.
it's top of mind, but I'm just so proud of everyone. I mean, to see what we've been able to accomplish in all the different restaurants and seeing these incredible chefs and managers execute their vision has been the greatest joy of my life. And, my brother and I are nominated for the Outstanding Restaurateur Award for the James Beard Awards, which is like our industry's highest honor.
hmm
And I
Amazing.
just sit here feeling like the greatest sense of imposter syndrome of like, I deserve none of this. And all credit goes to the team. But if I can lift up Nashville, I'm all for it. So I couldn't pick a favorite. I mean, what everyone is doing is ridiculous. I just feel so grateful to be busy, and I do think that pressure is a privilege. And the fact that we've got 9 projects we're working on right now, and they're all like more exciting than the next one day, and they ebb and flow.
Yeah.
I couldn't pick one, but just so excited for what's happening here. But I could pick my favorite child. That's my son Jasper. He's my number
That's a
one
good
right now.
diplomatic answer.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on Quality Matters. As always, a great conversation.
Always
Yeah,
good to see you.
thanks so
Thanks so
much.
much. Yeah.
All right.
All right, Shaka, that was such an interesting conversation with Max Goldberg.
Yeah.
There was so much, there were so many things that he said that pertain and relate to the hospitality and the service industry, but that are also so
Yeah.
connected to education. And there's so much that we can learn from what he shared, his approach, his strategy, his observations, that I think educators and parents and education leaders, education thought partners, anybody in the education space can actually engage with, what he was saying and have a lot of really strong takeaways. I'm
Mhm.
curious, as a reflection after the conversation we just had, what are some of your biggest takeaways?
Well, one of the things that right out the gate was a little bit surprising to me is that when we talked, I think you asked him just kind of how he thinks about his the restaurants in general, and he said that he thinks about the restaurants and the meal as a vehicle for conversation and memory making. He didn't go straight to food. It was more about kind of mission and values,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that was really interesting. And then when he articulated that, it's also really relatable.
Yeah.
And it made me think about whether if a school leader at your school can't articulate sort of mission and values,
Mm-hmm.
then just like a restaurant that doesn't know why they are serving that food that night, like head to the exits.
Yeah. And that's so interesting, that comparison. I didn't have that thought. He has this, what you just said, like a very clear, concise, this is why I do what I do, because I want to create opportunities for memory making and conversation. Um, I'd be curious what school leaders would say about what their purpose is. Is
Hmm.
it to educate a student? Well, what does that look like?
Right.
Are you teaching them facts, or are you teaching them how to be good citizens?
Right.
Um,
It made me think of the conversation that we had with Dr. Mike McShane,
mhm.
and he talked about this concept of eudaimonia,
Mm,
this uh, the good life,
mhm.
right? That we're trying to educate. In his mind, you're trying to educate kids so that they can be oriented towards living a good life, and he can ascribe certain values to that.
Yeah,
And in a similar fashion, Max wasn't talking about, oh, we're trying to deliver, 650 calories to the average person at a
right.
price point of this. No, memory making and conversation is an ultimate goal. And that might be at a restaurant that is serving kind of like game day bar food, or it might be at a Japanese concept, or who knows what.
But what's so interesting, that and what you just made me think of. Okay, so that's his philosophy
Hmm.
in his practice in his sector. McDonald's isn't going to say that that's their purpose for serving. Sweetgreen isn't going to say that that's
Mm,
their purpose for serving. They have a different intention with their product.
yeah, different ethos.
A different ethos. Thank you. The idea of, like, they're preparing food and they want people to come and enjoy it, I'm sure that's there. Every student that goes to school, you want them to learn. That's there.
Right.
But when you break it down, there's all these different ways to actually um, deliver the product according to your different ethos. And so, as we make these arguments or these points applicable to the education space, all these different schools, they might have different ethos.
That's true.
And does that make one higher quality than the other? Probably, maybe in some regard, but also quality is subjective. And if you're looking for an environment that allows your student to participate in self-directed learning, then going to a military academy where their ethos is profound and it's a unique statement, that might not be what you're looking for.
Hmm.
And so, what does it look like when you're choosing different restaurants? How influenced are you by the different ethos that
Hmm.
each group has? And when you're choosing a school, how much do you consider sort of what their different focus points and their different motivation and their different end goals are? And to your point, how available are people, or how easily statable are the different schools' ethos? And do
Hmm.
they do
Hmm.
that? Are they clear on
Yeah.
it themselves?
Yeah, one of the things that he said, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, but he kind of talked about having quick feedback in the
Mm-hmm.
in the hospitality and restaurant
Yeah.
industry. And so on the one hand, you've got to have a long vision if you're talking about mission and values.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, they're getting really rapid, feedback. He talked about an example where sometimes they have a chef's tasting, and so they're trying out new things,
Yeah.
and people can say, "Oh, I didn't really like
Mm-hmm.
that particular recipe or concept." Um, how do you think about that transferring in the education space? It seems like
Mm-hmm.
there's some classrooms and some schools where the feedback loop is pretty quick, but often I think parents are kind of left in the dark a little bit, and so maybe they don't even have a way to give that feedback
Yeah.
in real time. And then I can see how the quality of the product suffers, right?
Yeah.
Because then it's not responsive to um, to what's happening in real time. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah. Oh, it does. So a couple thoughts. There's this notion of accountability wrapped up in that,
Hmm.
because when you're getting quick feedback, you almost have no choice but to be accountable to the feedback, at least to hear it. And so in a restaurant, in the examples he was giving at a chef's tasting, you're hearing, this was good, I didn't like this, I liked this.
Hmm.
You have the ability to internalize that feedback, either make adjustments or not, but you've been given responses. In schools, I don't know a forum where that is as possible. I
Mm.
don't know I can't think of a situation that I've been as it pertains to education where you say, let me try this out, and then you give me immediate feedback. I guess when you're a teacher, you have your teacher mentor or the head of the school or the head of the division come and observe your teaching and then give you feedback, and that's helpful, but that's very rare, at least in my experience. Um, so my second thought, in addition to this, like, how does accountability work and weave itself into your question? In restaurants, they offer chef tasting
Oh, they're
menus.
inviting it.
They're inviting it. They're looking
Yeah.
for the feedback.
Yeah.
They are asking for it. I don't know that education. I don't know that you're going to find a school that says, "Hey, parents, we'd like you to come sit in this room and give us feedback."
Hmm.
I don't know that to not be true, so I'm not going to make that declarative statement, but it's definitely not as a part of the system as it is in the restaurant
Sure.
hospitality world.
Sure.
You don't have, um, you know, people who come from representatives who come from different magazines or um, whatever it is saying, let me try your experience and then review it publicly. Like,
Right.
that's not
Right.
something that's a
Right. The
part of
closest you get is a sort of like blue ribbon school,
right.
and that happens based on data that was from like 9 months ago.
And is the school saying, hey, you come to us because we have something we want to show you?
Right.
Or is the over big umbrella saying, we're going to go to all these different places. We're going to use the same metric to
Yeah.
assess.
Yeah. Same
and
rubric for
same
sure.
rubric.
Yeah.
So
It's
I
a
don't
great
know.
point.
I think that this idea of inviting, we grew up in my house. Feedback is a gift. Feedback is a gift. Feedback is a gift. Over and over and over again. And I rolled my eyes for a while. And now I'm like, feedback is a gift.
Hmm.
And if you can get it quickly, you're that much better off.
Yeah.
And if you can interpret it and actually act upon it, you're also that much better off.
Yep.
And especially, is it always delivered gently and nicely? Absolutely not. But if you can still find value in it,
Mhm.
despite how it's delivered, you're better off than not.
There's a company actually based here in Nashville also, and it's called Possip.
Hmm.
Possip, Possip, Possip. That wasn't a product placement or something, but the company, it stands for, it's kind of a hybrid of parent gossip.
Hmm.
Okay, but what the company does, and it's founded by a woman. Her name is Shawnee Dowell, and she has got a long history in education. But the idea is that schools can use the Possip platform to basically gather and collect all the gossip that parents would have been talking about when they're waiting in line for their kids or when they're talking to each other at a basketball game, so that a school can proactively gather some of the chatter that's out there and then respond to it. And so it's a
Interesting.
really interesting, it's doing a little bit of that, right? Inviting the feedback.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. That's not a majority of schools, right?
No.
There are schools, more and more schools are doing it, but I think it's more likely that you get an annual parent survey or something,
Yeah.
and it's pretty pro forma, and the school's not really responsive to it.
Okay, so how about this? Why do you think that schools or education entities are not as open? I was going to say focused, but maybe that's not the right word. They're not as open to this type of feedback, this style of feedback, this immediate reflection on an experience type of feedback. Is it because they don't think the person giving feedback has enough information to be a valid feedback giver? Or is it because they don't want to hear because they're not confident that the feedback wouldn't be positive? Or is it that they don't want to have to implement and adjust based off of the feedback?
Man, those are all great hypotheses, and maybe it's a little bit of both, or all three of those, and
Right.
I'm going to add a fourth to it.
Okay.
I think a fourth and major difference between what is the K-12 education space and the hospitality industry is that if the feedback at one of Max's restaurants is negative, then guess what? Those people are going to tell somebody
Mm-hmm.
that they know, hey, don't go to that place. And they themselves are not coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we're in Nashville. And, anyone who's been to Nashville recently knows there's no lack of other restaurants.
Yeah.
Right. So they tell people, hey, don't go back to that place. And we're not going back there. We're not coming back tomorrow night or the next time we're in town. Well, with something like 75% of kids still across the country attending their zoned public school,
You're right.
they're coming back tomorrow. It doesn't matter if
Because they
we're
don't have a
responsive because
choice.
they don't have a choice. So it doesn't matter if we're responsive or not.
Yeah.
You didn't like what you got served today at lunch? Well,
Yeah.
see you tomorrow.
Okay, that's the question. I'd be so curious what other people listening from every different perspective as a parent, why is it that you're not, knocking on your school's door saying, "I have feedback. This is how I want it to be delivered. This is how I want it to be interpreted. These are the adjustments I want to be making." You know what it makes me think of? Alberto Cavallo's uh, episode when he gave a big response to a question and his what he was saying was, we want to arm parents with information.
Mm-hmm.
I think he might have even said we want to arm parents with dangerous information
Mm-hmm.
so that they can be equipped and feel confident leading, directing the responses to their students' education, to their
Yeah.
children's education. I don't know that that's happening everywhere.
And they deserve it.
They
Okay, let
deserve it.
me take us in a slightly different direction, maybe a
Mhm.
more I want to say encouraging one, but Max said that they reserve some percentage, some meaningful percentage of their budget to just try different things out. And then he said that they have a specific position even at their organization that is trying new things out, the Dreamweaver.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before, but that I got really excited about that, and I think it's. I'd love to know your thoughts and thinking about what might that look like at another organization, at an
Yeah.
education organization.
I wish I could shadow the Dreamweaver
Yeah,
for Max.
yeah.
What they do
I'd
to
love to
just
put that on my
creative.
business card, right?
Yeah.
Shaka Mitchell, Dreamweaver,
To
amazing.
have the opportunity to brainstorm and get creative and dream about different ways to add value and add and make these really interesting experiences would be so interesting. How I would see that playing out in a school setting is pretty similar to what he was describing, like
Hmm.
somebody whose sole purpose was to create opportunities to enhance the experience. So if you go into a school and you're talking about you're better understanding what the school looks like, what their focus is, what their mission is, and you were in a position to find some of their blind spots and say, this is where the students could be better supported, or this is an opportunity to develop, a new experience for students to have so that they graduate
Mm-hmm.
with awareness of X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. I think that would be huge, because I think what we're going to see, and you and I talked about this a little while ago, what we're going to see with, education freedom moving into different states and money becoming available for different parents to use in directing their students' education, we're going to see that there's a need for schools to start differentiating themselves
Mm-hmm.
in ways other than just through the academics and through athletics. They're going to be needing to
Mm.
put their foot out there and say, we are the school that offers real world experiences to our students. And now you can use your ESAs, and now you can use whatever it is to come to our school where you
Mm-hmm.
couldn't have come before. And you have 3 other options, but they're all relatively similar in the academic space. But we stand out because this is what we offer our students, and
Mm.
this is what we focus on. And having a position like a Dreamweaver could be a really neat way to
Mm-hmm.
start highlighting the areas where those opportunities could exist, and then taking it one step further and actually developing them.
Yeah, I think it's a super interesting concept. It also speaks to what he's trying to do and what I wish we would do more in education, and that is marry expertise and passion,
Yeah, 100%. I
right? And
totally
he
agree.
talked about that and kind of building a team and building the staff, whether it's at that umbrella organization or at a given restaurant, right? But
Mhm.
people who really are passionate about the experience,
Yeah.
um, which means that they're passionate about making sure that the customer leaves having had a great experience. So
Hmm.
they're not passionate about being experts,
Right.
though they may have expertise.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
a good
think
distinction.
sometimes that's missing a little
Yeah.
bit in the education space. There's often, you kind of got into this, but there's often a little bit of a hubris
Hmm.
at many like central offices, because it's like, well, we're the education experts, and we'll tell you when it's okay to ask us a question.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's not okay. That's not a parent-centric or a student-centric mentality.
Yeah.
Um, Having a position like a Dreamweaver, I think, would sort of force you to constantly be thinking about, yeah, what's possible?
Yeah.
Uh, eh, can we look at this? Can we sort of rotate this thing around and look at it from a different angle?
And I'm going to step into that slightly controversial space, but
Do
I
it.
think people would say, this position in a school, how privileged, that's not a necessity.
Mm,
And there are some schools operating
hmm.
on budget deficits. They only have rooms for the necessity. And I would really push back on that
Mm,
because I don't think that this is a position that would only find itself in privileged schools or environments. I think this is a position that anybody already existing in those schools, arguably the people that know the schools the best, would be best
hmm.
positioned
Hmm.
to take on this role. All you need is the um, mental framework that more is possible.
Hmm.
You don't need to have a backing budget of X
Right.
amount of dollars.
Right.
You're not sending your kids around the world to have these experiences. You're looking at the community in which you are existing currently, and you're deciding that more is possible. More needs to be offered to the students, and how do we make that happen? So I hope that, this idea of a dream weaver, I hope we start seeing a lot more people, and I might even take that on myself. But like, this idea is not limited to those who have resources or to those who already exist in high opportunistic
I
situations.
agree, and maybe that should be the question, because I'd love to solicit some of these dreams. And so maybe if you're watching this or listening to this, that's the question that we'll leave you with: is
Hmm.
if you had a dream weaver position at your school, in your district, in your diocese, whatever that unit locus of control is,
Yeah.
what would that person dream up? What would you have them do? And do you think it's feasible? I'd love to hear what people come up with, because I do think that that kind of position could really um, add a tremendous amount of value to all schools.
I agree. I agree. I'd be really curious to see what people's thoughts are.
Great. Well, let's
Awesome.
stop there. Always good to chat.
All right. Thanks, Shaka.
Yep.